are opening. But Mage, a impressive, solid winner of the Kentucky Derby, very playable. Not for me.
He wasn't for me just because he was so lightly raced, and maybe in the 21st century, I have to refigure that all.
Well, as I said,
and it may have been. I said to somebody, everybody before the race was kind of like, and you said it's not a strong class of 3-year-olds, and so maybe the lightly raced factor, a horse that has shown some talent but lightly raced, maybe that's a way to go in a field like that. Or one of the ways to go. He was just too lightly raced for me, but he looked good. I thought all three of them looked. 2 fills, ran his eyeballs out, and I had Angel of Empire, and I thought he kind of tipped out just behind Mage, and I thought his jock kind of waited for things to open a little for a couple of strides. So by the time he got out, Mage had a length and a half, a couple lengths.
The only thing I don't get what people saying afterwards. Now I'm a pace and a trip guy. That really kind of constitutes my 90% of my wagering thought process. I thought Castellano, I thought his trip was tremendous, all things considered. He makes a move at about the 8th pole the first time to get out of the crowd and get the rail. And at that point, he had free air, as NASCAR likes to say. My guy, Disarm, is in traffic the whole. He ran well enough, but my rule is, I always say, like, the Derby is unique. I pick 2 horses. They got to run first or second for me to get any whiff. I run third and fourth, and it's immaterial for me. But as I said, I'll stick with the idea that I think we're going to see 5 or 6 different winners of Grade 1 races for the 3-year-olds. He got like a 106 or something. Yeah. Let's see how many times he repeats that in his career. And I will say this, based on being a pace guy, 2 fills is doing the right thing because it's a big effort. And this brings me to my other point, where this is why, in my opinion, there should be more spacing between the races. They would make better races, because if you're not going for the Triple Crown, you can't gut 2 fills. He had a very hard race. Now, I think if the Preakness was a month later, the runner-up of the Kentucky Derby would be in there, and the Triple Crown races would actually be better races, tougher competition, and thus harder.
That social media, the couple days afterwards, had that whole discussion. A lot of people, I'm traditional, let's keep it there. A lot of people, let's expand, put.
But let me ask you something about the traditionalists, since I'm not on that side. Do they think these make better races? They don't.
Well, and that's a lot of people said, well, it's supposed to be hard, so leave it the way it is.
No.
But
they all leave.
I don't think they get it.
Todd Pletcher's run like 11 horses in the Preakness his whole career, and he had to run 3 of them for the Triple Crown.
That whole, it's supposed to be. It doesn't get easier if you space it out. I don't get the logic of those people. Well, it's supposed to be hard. Don't change it. And it's like, I think if you change it, it actually gets harder.
I think objectively, that argument is unassailable by just the fact that 2 fills isn't running tells me the race is less good. The fact that Todd Pletcher has really only voluntarily run about 8 horses in his career in the Preakness shows you, well, that doesn't sound right. And I really think it makes for a much better Triple Crown by separating them more.
And it is kind of multi-layered, I will say that, because clearly in the 21st century, the spacing plays into what trainers like. But the Maryland Jockey Club and NYRA have to then make the business decision. Is this a good business decision for them? And that adds another.
Well, I don't think NYRA's matters. I think NYRA's just either the Triple Crown.
Well, the one that
late June,
one that is the more important is the Maryland Jockey Club.
Well, because they don't want to move off it because of the kids and college kids. They don't want to move off it to.
You go Memorial Day weekend. Does that work for them? And so that plays into it, certainly. Yeah, but here in the 21st century, 2 weeks turnaround. Yeah, and 2 fills. It was just when they made it. They're making.
So here's an argument. Some pace guys might be saying the horse that ran the best race is 2 fills. You know how we handicap on the Handicappers Report, right? Well, so the horse that some people think ran the best race is not going to be in the Preakness. That can't be good, right? So I mean, I think the traditionalists are losing ground, but I do think the stick in the mud is the Maryland Jockey Club that loves that attendance number, loves that infield, loves the college kids are still in town before they leave. And I don't think they would move off. The Belmont, I think, is always, it's immaterial. It's either somebody running for the Triple Crown or somebody's not running for the Triple Crown. I don't think the date matters at all for the Belmont sakes, and I think it would be a better race if there was more separation. I'd like to see 2 fills in it. I think if we did a chart of the horses that have not run it the last 25 years, I've always said this going back to 2000. Somebody had to tap Neil Drysdale on the shoulder and say, Fusilicia Pegasus has to run in 2 weeks, because I've followed Neil's career since he left Charlie, and Neil was one of the first ones that liked time between races. So we'll see.
People were waiting on Mage. I mean, I don't think in this day and age it's a done deal that the Derby winner's going to show up.
I agree. And I think another thing you've seen is, and this goes back, remember when Bernardini won and beat Barbaro? Barbaro broke down everything. First thing they said was, we're not going to the Belmont. The Belmont is becoming an anachronism for horses that, why do I want to go 1.5 miles and then cut back to 1.1 miles? So we'll see how it plays out. The elephant in the room, Forte. My question is, and there's not enough people that cover the media, is on what date did they know he had failed the drug test? I'm saying September 20th at the latest. Now, here's the other thing. Apparently, how is Joe Drape, who doesn't cover racing on a daily basis, the only one that gets the information? I mean, who knew, and is there a cover-up, and why? Because apparently they knew before the Champagne because he had to scratch out and run in the Breeders' Futurity. And I'm guessing the 4 questions David O'Rourke is not going to answer at Saratoga is penny breakage, timing the races right, Forte's disqualification, and Linda Rice's suspension. I suspect they're just not going to address this, but it seems like there should be a greater outrage on this than there is. Like
the situation with the hopeful is just mind-boggling.
I mean, why wouldn't Pletcher or Napoli come out and say we've tested positive, we're disqualified, we're going to proceed with the process? And then why did nobody from NYRA say the hopeful winner of Grade 1 has been disqualified?
That's what gets me, that this doesn't come, because at some point it's going to come out. I mean, if he gets suspended.
I doubt Joe Drape was the only one in the media that knew.
It was just.
Does nobody want to take on those connections? I believe in that.
Maybe, but
it was a little.
Like it's going to come out, so it's just.
Is cover up a word we want?
The longer it goes, the worse it is when it comes out. So it's just that was mind-boggling. And for folks that aren't familiar, Forte had was DQ'd this week from the hopeful, and Todd Pletcher was suspended, although he's appealing, so he'll still be.
I mean, on my Excel spreadsheet, it says it, and then I had to put in a column yesterday that said on this date he was disqualified from the hopeful. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No. That was mind-boggling. 8 months later, is it?
And there doesn't seem to be any I don't know. I mean,
and the mind-boggling thing for people who aren't familiar, the mind-boggling thing is nobody knew anything about this until this week.
And I want to know if we're going to find out the line of how we found out. And then this is always the other question. What else don't we know?
Oh, that's a very valid question after that.
I mean, that's a pretty big event, the hopeful, pretty big connections. A horse who didn't go to the sideline, stayed in the news, was the news, and yet nothing. From my thing, I want to find out. It appears as if Joe Drape. So I want to know how he got the story. And did other people have the story and not go with it? I'm a believer. How does he get it?
I'm not that cynical, but I have to wonder. I mean, I don't think you're out there in left field or anything with that.
He fails the drug test. What do you think it was, a CIA meeting?
Well, I mean, I don't know what the benefit would, although as you say, you don't want to go up against, but so you hand it to your colleague who isn't plugged in, or it just seems like it was a funny situation. It was not
funny
a good,
is not the word I'm
not
using.
a good situation. Yeah.
And we'll see. And he can't run in the Preakness. Another thing, if there is spaced out, he could have had that chance. He'd be off the 14-day vet list. So we're not going to have 2 Phils or Forte, but we're going to have Mage. And we'll
Perform is interesting. Shug, winner of the Tessio. They're putting up $150K to make him eligible. He's interesting. Blazing Sevens is a little bit interesting, I think, from Chad. So
horse is not on the Triple Crown Trail, who will show up, and I doubt will go in the Belmont, right? I mean, this seems to be real funny. If you win one of the two and don't win the other one, you don't usually go on.
No.
I think trainers find it very I don't know. I think you could chart it out and see a lot of defections from it. Interesting week. We'll see what this week brings us leading up into the Preakness Stakes. We hope they have weather half as good as Churchill Downs. It was a great card. We don't have enough time to go under it. Good night, Olive losing, I guess. I went against both the sprint champions.
She may have been best, but lost.
Well, might have been best. We certainly wouldn't want to see another race, but it happens. You get a bullseye on it. Big day for Irad yesterday. One thing I want to say that gets lost in the discussion is, Irad won 4 yesterday. No chalks. He won 1, the longest shot on the board.
Was it really? Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. And I'll give you another one. I have talked about this for longer than I should have. I'm going to do someday. I'm going to take my education in the pick 5. I'm building up a bankroll, and I'm going to delve in. And I will say yesterday's 9-race card might be the perfect example for me to dive into it. There was 9 races, right? They 2 pick 5, so they shared 1 race. If you look at it, the 2 different pick 5s, some similar stuff. The one race that, Irad won wasn't the favorite, but he was about $5, right, in the opener. In the second half, the second pick 5, there was a chalk that actually paid more than Irad's non-chalk played. They both had a couple of Mormino special type horses, $16, $18, and they each had a second place horse. My point is the mutuals are close enough. The pick 5s were, let me make sure I got this right. I was going to say 3 times. The early pick 5 was under 1,300, and the second pick 5 was over 3,200. My point being, the mutuals, yes, the Katie Davis horse in the second one is definitely, the $25 horse. And I know Irad won on the longest shot on the board early, but Irad's getting played in the pick 5 more than Katie Davis. But yesterday's pick 5, not earth-shattering in dollar value, but you look at some numbers and you can really see the chance to get a price. The people that got the 3,200 are like, the people that got 1,300 might be like, how does this work? But, Irad won 4 of the 5. You're doomed.
Yeah.
That's something that you can't objectively measure. But Irad was 80% of the early pick 5. I think, he's costing you maybe that pick is supposed to come back. Talked to Brian Natto about this, about 2,400. He might have cost you 50 cents on the dollar. So interesting. But I'm going to climb that mountain someday, and I'm sure I'm going to get Brian has told me that the path that I'm thinking about taking, that knowing me I am going to take, he says is doomed. And the guy inside the pylons on Twitter says that I am going to see the promised land, and I believe inside the pylons. I believe you're supposed to go left, but everybody goes right. Obviously, that's what I believe. So, but I'm going to take that educational lead.
To see how it all works.
Once Anthony's college fund is completely funded, we can go down that road. So
that's a good strategy.
Mrs. M certainly thought so. As I got the stink eye. You're gonna what? You think you're gonna lose the whole bankroll? That you think that's a plan? I said, I think that's the plan. You should think that you're going to this is an education. You pay them tuition. You don't get the money back. You get knowledge at the end. I'm gonna give them the money. I'm gonna get an education. It's gonna be far less than college. Let me tell you.
That's,
So, especially colleges that you and I chose. So, at the top of the hour, tell the good people who you have on Racing Across America today.
Coming up 10 o'clock, we'll be joined by Mike McAdam from the Daily Gazette. He was at the Derby last week, and so we'll talk to him.
Sounds like he's going to cover the Triple Crown.
Yeah, he's headed to Pimlico next weekend as well, but we'll talk a little Derby with Mike and his experiences down there. And then also we'll have Dave Grenigan from the Daily Racing Forum. He was also at the Derby, so we'll have a little Derby conversation with him. But we'll take a look at the 3 stakes this afternoon at Belmont with Dave. Dave, of course, covering
what's
New
always
York
interesting to me is that it seems like media people dig in at Churchill Downs like early, and they show up at the Preakness much shorter period. And here's the interesting part to me. If you like horse racing, you probably like sports. Baltimore has a lot more going on than Louisville.
But I think part of that is the horses. A lot of the horses aren't necessarily like Mike Welch gets to Louisville at least a couple weeks ahead and covering the workouts in the morning. I think Mike's back in Florida. I don't think there's much going on.
No, that's
at Pimlico.
You're 100% right?
But I will.
Haven't horses made their last workouts at Churchill Downs and they just ship over, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny system.
I will note, though, that I think a lot of people do show up either Thursday or Friday morning. They have that alibi breakfast. I think a lot of the press is there.
Like 70
for that. But
they used to send the Orioles out of town that weekend. They used to bug me.
Oh.
You had to get there like Wednesday to see their last game, so they got out of town. You ready?
Yeah, here we go.
11.
And again, I'll look at Churchill a little bit later on, but we will kick things off down in New York. Belmont Stakes on Saturday the 13th. Lucky Saturday the 13th. Belmont's opener starter allowance, 6 furlongs to trip.
And just as a final note, Chad Brown had a $15 winner in the last one. So not all Chad Brown horses pay $340. But kicking off now, most of our starter allowances haven't been for 16. This is a new thing. Also, a couple notes. On the Daily Racing Form, they put some headings. Optional claimers, 62 1X. That's not accurate. If you read the conditions, it is the classic 2X. They did it the other day. I want to say Thursday. They've done it on this card also today. We'll get to that later. But this starter allowance condition, 16 in New York, at Belmont, I should say. 4, 5, 6. Ragtime Blues as we chase the 12-month ROI in the black, folks. We take blinkers off. First time off of a $25,000 claim for Javier Castellano. For second, 6-5 in your heart, David Jacobson. Irad, remember, 4 winners yesterday, none on the chalk. He's 6-5 in here. David Jacobson seems to have gotten back on the beam. I expect Richard Dutro Jr. to get back on the beam, and then 6, Rivercon, my third choice. So 4, 5, 6 in the opener.
Dutro with his first winner on the comeback last weekend. Second race at Belmont this afternoon. Allowance with the N1X.
Yes. This is
7 furlongs on the grass.
Quick note here, because there's a bunch of them. The 1, the 1A, the 10, and the 11 are MTOs. We have 9 in for the turf. 4, 6, and 3. Soulmate making the seasonal debut gets my top pick here for John Pregman. Had a full season on the turf last year. Comes off the bench today. We saw this last year. Raced well, I thought, from a tough inside post position. So coming off the bench today, I expect a good effort with Omar Mormino in the saddle. Oscar for second. Silver Seeker. Serious layoff lines in here. They add blinkers today. Whether it's the third career start or the third start off of a winter rest or an extended layoff, I like, and it's very often just like for you and me. If you haven't done any athletic activity, then you go out like Seth and you play basketball with 20-year-olds, and you come home and you're a little bit beat up. Your next time out, little rough, but then your third time, and I like that. And I've been talking about Central Banker, and I think I didn't put it in these notes, but Central Always Charming, I think, was an offspring of Central Banker. My point is, there's been these 3 sons of Spicetown who have been good stallions. Munnings is, I think, the most famous one, but Central Banker is quality. Trevor gets them out. And second off of a 18-month about layoff is Elusive Edge. 463 in race 2.
Race number 3 this afternoon. It is a conditional claimer, $25,000 tags, non-winners of 3 lifetime. The 1-turn mile, top of the page. I have written competitive bunch.
I see it the same way. That's why, I've said this before. If when it's something like that, I say, you look at it, nothing jumps out. Seth has it labeled as a competitive bunch, which I wholeheartedly agree. It's tough to take the shorter price horses because they don't seem to have an edge in the athletic contest, and you're getting the worst of it at the mutuals. And, my path in the future pick 5 might be disastrous, but this is definitely disastrous in my opinion. I am 5-7-1 Cumberland Blues is my top pick, and not because recently I was at the Cumberland River, but Orlando Noda. This part is a guess for me, Seth. I've talked about there are these guys, and Orlando Noda, Jeffrey Engelhart on a smaller scale, and Rudy are like my guys that really made me start to feel as if their 20% for a year really had some interesting highs and lows, if you were, and they were my bar graph. Linda Rice used to be in that group, but she's not anymore. She's just like a consistent 20. Orlando is probably the more famous than Jeffrey Engelhart, who's done it really just once in his career, of the, here comes the Orlando Noda train. And I was just thinking that maybe in the first couple you can get a price on, and that's it. So I'm Cumberland Blues, second off the train from claim from Linda. I'm throwing out the slop effort. I've tried to make the point through the years that good or bad, I just take slop performances and just kind of put them in their own box and don't worry about the buyer speed figures. And coming out of starter allowance, it is my opinion now that there is a clear tough division with the starter allowance. And I bring that up because, for 40 years of handicapping in New York, Seth, there were no starter allowance races. It was a much easier card, but these starter allowances to me are far tougher than these restricted claimers. So this is a big class drop. 42 Ace is my second pick for Charlie Baker. 2 nice starts this year, and for third from the rail, Norgay, right? That's Mount Everest, right?
I don't know.
The guy that, what are they called? Sherpas? The Sherpa that.
This is like a famous Sherpa? I would not know that.
Dan, Google Norgay, nothing else, and see what comes. I think Sir Edmund Hillary's Sherpa was Norgay something.
Well, the Dam's fearless leader, so that would be actually be kind of clever, I think.
I think it is clever. I think whomever they are, they've nailed it. I like David Aragona had the other day, whatever the opposite of they knew, which was clever, returning to a race in New York, whatever the opposite is of they knew. All right, I'm just going to hit. This is not the best television. I understand my boss is probably going crazy. There it is, Norgay and Hillary.
There you go.
Let's see what we got here. I can't. Tenzing Norgay was the Sherpa that Sir Edmund Hillary got up the thing. I'm thinking, they didn't call me up.
No, fearless leader. It seems like, as I say, a clever. That would have been a good question for Jeopardy. That would have been a stumper for me on Jeopardy. Boy, if that would have been Final Jeopardy, I would have been mad. Fourth race at Belmont this afternoon. It is a starter allowance. They will go 8.5 furlongs down at Belmont. That is 1 turn.
I'm not speaking for him, but based on his tweets, I think one of Andy Sterling's hobbies is
complaining about
grading how people bet on Final Jeopardy. And he's right most of the time. I've been befuddled by some of their choices, but he takes great enjoyment, I think, of it. See, and here's the starter allowance, Seth, for 50. We had the one. This 50 has been the one that has been the blood and guts of starter allowance in New York for 10 years, let's say. The allowance 16 we have in the opener is a newer frontier. We had one at Aqueduct, but this was the one that when they brought starter allowances. I'm 617. Redman gets my top pick. Robbie Falcone sends out this runner. Scored rooting, going 2 turns at the Big A. will go 1 turn, 8.5 furlongs here at the same level. Most recently racing for second. I have John Kimmel's runner, the 1 mandatory. And for third, Little Bro Coupe. It's a short price in here. Jose Camejo, who might be on that list, Seth, of the bar graph trainers.
And I will say number 1 mandatory goes out for our friends at America's Pastime, locally based partnership. And I'm rooting for mandatory because that DQ last time, that was a bad DQ. I texted some of the America's Pastime people, and that was a rough call that they lost on that one. So looking for them.
Seth, you don't really step out like that, do you? You're usually very
well. That was. I mean, I think
now on Twitter was that
I think everybody was kind of like,
really?
What the heck happened there?
Which goes to my other thing that I've always said is the jockey's phone call live in real time, and I don't think it's unreasonable that the camera in the steward's room I don't know why it's a public thing.
I think Hong Kong that's kind of the thing. I'm trying to think of the jurisdiction.
I've never looked into it closely, but boy, it seems like they do a lot of things right there.
Well, there is no
you see
question.
That jockey got 9 months or something, so they seem to have a pretty good eye for protecting.
And then I'll also say there are some tracks that won't show the replays that the stewards are watching. And that's completely frustrating. And then I can't figure out when the horses go past the wire.
How do they defend this? No, we don't want our camera in there.
I cannot.
You don't have a choice. I'm your boss. It's like, I don't care what you
But on the simulcast signal, when the horses go by the wire,
yes,
what's the first thing you want to know? To me, I want to see the final odds, because normally the odds and the chiclets go off the screen. A lot of tracks put the pool totals.
Well, that's useless.
Who is calling for that? Who?
Very good. I like it, Seth. Improving the game.
Who is really saying, hell yeah, show me how much money was bet in the tri-pool. I want to know what the 9 went off at. All right, we'll kick off
That
stakes.
seems very reasonable. I'll be like,
a lot of tracks do it, though, and I can't figure. Watch for now. A lot of tracks do that. They come under the wire. First thing up is they show the pools. 5th race kicks off stakes action. It's the Man of War. That's a Grade 1 event for $600,000. Mile and 3/8 on the grass.
and this is like a point of reference when the ground started shifting, when they moved the Man of War out of the fall as the prep for the Turf Classic, moved it to the spring. Curlin, who I thought raced very well in it, I think it was first time turf, Grade 1 action. I thought he raced well. I think this is a terrific horse race. I truly do. On balance, Channel Maker just keeps slugging it out. If you follow Formula One racing, number 4, Max Verstappen, the king of Formula One right now, won in Miami the other day. On balance, I think I would not be surprised if 5 or 6 horses won this race. And I'm going against a little bit of what I just said earlier, except there's one difference which I'll make. And that is, I do think Warren Point I think this is a very even race for the under trifectas. And I think Warren Point going out for Godolphin, Charles Appleby, 3rd race of the career. And I hadn't seen this before, but what are these numbers to the far right? 114 and 117. Are they time form? They can't be buyers, right?
I'd have to guess.
They used to put them under the race you ran, and it would say time form number, etc. And these are gigantic numbers, if I'm even close. But there's very few things, Seth, I have been ahead of the curve on in this game. But Dubai as a stallion is one of the few things. And for those, even where the lofty position he's received, he was right behind Galileo, folks. And that's pretty heady stuff. I am Warren Point in this race. We know the power of Godolphin. Last seen running in Qatar after running in Bahrain. Howe Street is my second pick. Intriguing runner here for Jorge Abreu. They take blinkers off, won an allowance race, and then was the beaten favorite in the Marathon Elkhorn. I like the fact they've taken blinkers off. I like the fact that Flavian Prat stays aboard And then Soldier Rising is my next pick. Makes the seasonal debut, an offspring of Frankel. Listen, Channel Maker slugging it out. Red Knight, Value Engineering. I think it's a terrific addition of the Man of War. I just think that Warren Point is a real upper echelon grade 1 type horse, and I think the rest are, looking up at that.
I'm going with one of the 9-year-olds. I have Red Knight over Warren Point. 2 9-year-olds in here, Red Knight and Channel Maker. You gotta love that. And I looked it up. I'm guessing those are time form numbers.
Yes.
So when you talked about them being big numbers, in my mind, I was thinking 7 or 8, but I just looked it up. There's a time form Wikipedia page, and it said add 12 to 14 points to the buyer number to come up. So from this, you take 12 or 14 off.
So it's like a 103, 104, which is terrific on the turf.
Yeah. 6th race this afternoon, the Peter Pan Grade 3 event, $200,000 up for grabs, a mile and an 1/8.
195 in here. Nice 3-year-old race. Well, how many are prepping for the Woody Stevens? How many are prepping for the Belmont? I don't know. But this race right here, I'm the one here making the second start since the middle of January. Broke the maiden, an offspring of Arrogate, which is going to have a very, he's passed away. Very small group, but boy, they are good. Lost to King's Barn, 2 races back. For second, Bishop's Bay on the outside for Brad Cox. Another interesting thing yesterday, Seth, and I this is the part of the pick 5 that intrigues me. There were 3 losing odds-on horses at Belmont yesterday. I keep stats for that because, that's a pretty big number. And obviously that is the direction I would be going, trying to beat those horses in the pick 5. But there were 3 lately. I said, I can tell you that in my life, there aren't too many days when there's 4 odds-on horses over a card, but it doesn't happen very often. That's why I keep it. But 3 losing odds-on. Bishop Bay, one of them is Brad Cox, by the way, and then he has Bishop's Bay. And then Classic Catch. They're adding blinkers after a rough performance in the Wood Memorial. 195.
There are nutty odds. When I sit in here in the afternoon, though, it has changed for me in the past couple of years. There was a horse yesterday that was 1-9, and I had it on top, but I said this is a much more competitive race than a 1-9 shot. So there are some, when they get on a favorite now, the betting public, I just wanted to mention before we head to the commercial. First of all, I'm going to do the dark horse play today, but secondly, Henry Q in here, the Del Mar Group, part of the ownership. Mick Cronin, the basketball coach at UCLA, also Rick Pitino, part of this. Henry Q was interesting and kind of on the Derby trail earlier this year, won the Mind That Bird down at Sunland, and then just ran 3rd in the Sunland Derby, so couldn't get enough points. But again, interesting. The Del Mar Group is a interesting ownership group. Again, I think also the UCLA football coach, I think, is one of the ownership group as
Chip
well.
Kelly.
Yeah, and I think he's in it also. So it's a kind of.
Speaking of the Wood Memorial, did you see the Lord Miles people tweet?
No.
Make some interesting reading this afternoon in between your 2 jobs.
All right.
Play of the day.
As noted, the Dark Horse play of the day. The folks from the Dark Horse Mercantile up in Saratoga are on board throughout the Triple Crown season. So Saturdays and Sundays, I'll toss out a Dark Horse play of the day.
Yes.
Stop up at the Dark Horse Mercantile if you're in Saratoga. Lots of fun. There's some racing memorabilia and apparel and whatnot. Go down the street and visit their sister store, Impressions of Saratoga. Again, and you will not regret if you're up in Saratoga. But today's Dark Horse play today, I was happy to hear your thoughts on the 2nd at Belmont, an allowance non-winners of 1 other than on the turf, because I too am with number 4 Soulmate, 8-1 on the morning line. Hasn't been seen since last November. I think we'll get the price with the connections and the layoff. But I looked at the 2 workouts coming into this. I think this horse is going to be well meant today. And off the racing last year, and particularly the better efforts last year, not only fits with this group, but a better effort puts this horse over this group. And again, the question mark is going to be the layoff.
Like your enthusiasm, Seth.
8-1. And again, with the 2 workouts, I think the layoff is not going to be a major concern. And so at the price and expecting that price with these connections to hold up, we'll make the Dark Horse play of the day today. Race number 2 at Belmont Park, number 4, Soulmate.
We'll be back with the second half of today's card from beautiful Belmont.
It's been referred to as possibly the best equine-themed gift shop on the planet. Impressions of Saratoga. Impressions of Saratoga, celebrating the Saratoga and equestrian lifestyles. It's your number one choice for Saratoga souvenirs, apparel, and gift shopping. We have gifts for the entire family, and we're pet-friendly too. Visit us online at impressionssaratoga.com or come on down. Impressions of Saratoga, 368 Broadway, downtown Saratoga. Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Oops, my bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Welcome back to the Handicappers Report on this Saturday. As noted, the week in between, but some good stakes action down in New York on this week in between last week's Derby and next week's Preakness. But 3-year-olds are facing off. You would think some of them may be hoping for Belmont Stakes coming up, facing off in today's Peter Pan. That'll kick things off. Second half of the card, we're taking a look at race 6, the Grade 3 Peter Pan. $200,000, 9 furlongs the trip.
We've already done this.
Oh, Peter Pan.
I'll just go into this. I'll just go into the 7th race. I knew we were in trouble when you said 3-year-olds. I'm like, this ship is about to hit the rocks. My man forgot to turn the page when he did. He got so enthused with Soulmate
so much
as the palest day that he just lost.
I was actually, when you were doing it, I was turning back.
I was
pulling page 2.
He wishes the windows were open already, so he
I wasn't
could
even.
I'll just go.
I'll introduce.
Okay.
7th race at Belmont today. State bred maiden 40 claimers going a mile and 16. Race 7.
wide open. Not counting the horses who are debuting for a tag. The 2, the 3, the 5, the 9. First time in for a tag, big angle for many people. 8-2-10 for me. Silent running, making the first start, not of the year, ran on New Year's Day. So the second start since November, in for 40 again. Jimmy Bond and Flavio Prat for second. Number 2, Barry the Builder. Seasonal debut, hasn't run since Veterans Day. First time in for a tag. And then number 10, War Prince for the Rob Atras barn. I think this is a wide open race, 8-2-10.
Up next, race number 7 at Belmont.
It's clever.
It's groundhog.
Yes.
Race number 8 at Belmont today. State bred allowance, 6 furlongs is the trip.
2, 7, and 9 for me. And boy, the deuce for Michelle Nevin. This horse has been on my radar screen since the debut, which has fallen off the race, which will help Baby Yoda in the future. But Affinity is my top pick. For a second, 26 Black, making the 3rd career start for a sharp outfit. And for 3rd, StarQuest. We're on the outside here for John Kimmel, making 2nd time turf, but debuted in April. Rooting gets back to sprinting. First time sprinting on the turf, but 2-7-9.
We have more stakes action in race number 9, the Run Happy Grade 3 event, $175,000 up for grabs. Sprinters going 3/4 of a mile.
4-2-3 for me, and there's not a single horse in here, including Stage Left, that would surprise me. Good luck with the horizontal players. I am 4-2-3. Candyman Rocket goes out for Bill Mott. I have to set aside the non-effort in the Count Fleet at Oaklawn and refer back to the Gulfstream Park. Nice victory as the favorite. For second, number 2, Bob Reed Jr. sends out this runner, basically a Mid-Atlantic Parks runner, Barron. And for third, Twisted Ride comes in off of a nice run of 4 in a row down at Parks. 4-2-3.
You mentioned stage left. I have stage left on top. 6-1
like
is
it.
the longest shot in the field, but I'm going to be interested to see how the odds shake out in this race.
Oh, I think
coming off of that King Leatherberry last time, this horse doesn't get.
Oh, no, you're getting against runners out of the top. You're getting all of that, I believe. I believe. Oh, the only way you can is if they dismiss the Parks runners, which I don't think they are going to do. But no, I think you're getting all of it.
Now I'm more interested to see what it plays out.
Yeah, we're still going to race 10, though.
Yeah.
I don't want your enthusiasm.
The 10th today. Optional claimer non-winners who won. I'll let you talk a little bit about this because you referred to it earlier. Mile 16th on the grass. It's kind of a dual condition.
Well, yes, but my point was for all the time, like making my charts, the price tag is 62 always corresponded to 2x. Now we have inflation. Like if you notice in New York, the second allowance condition used to be claimers in for 40. Now it's claimers in for 45. So this is a much bigger price tag because the idea is and the other thing was this was the opposite. When races were restricted 3-year-old, Seth, it didn't matter what circuit you were on, it seemed. It was optional 80 or 1X when it's restricted to 3-year-olds. They've actually dropped it down to 62. And by the way, very rarely was a horse ever in for the 80 and very rarely ever claimed. I think they were just trying to protect horses. So 6-8-3 for me and free look. Chad Brown's runner makes the second start since November. Tried the turf in the Florida Oaks. Remember, that's a turf race down on the big card at Tampa Bay. Get Your Kicks for second, making the third career start. The other Chad Brown runner takes on winners for the first time. And then Alpha Bella for Todd Pletcher coming out of the Appalachian with Flavian Prat. We draw down inside 6-8-3.
Wrap things up just a little before 6:30 this evening. The 11th at Belmont, State-bred maiden claimers going 6 furlongs.
12 in the main body, 13-14 AE, 15-16 MTOs, and 11-4-3. Linda sends out the 11 for the seasonal debut, making the 6th career start. For second, I am George's Vice. I think this is going to be the horse they're going to go to. Christophe Clement ran maiden special weights, drops in for a tag today, and Follow the Fed, making the first start since March. 11-4-3 in the 11th and finale, scheduled to go off at 6:22.
All right, we'll take another break. When we come back, we'll shift our attention down to Kentucky Churchill Downs for Saturday afternoon. Stay tuned.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes.
In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Falbrough. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish to the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Handicappers Report alongside Seth Merrow. I'm Anthony Mormino. We'll turn our attention to Churchill Downs, and we'll try and go in the order that they card the races. All right. The opener, Fillies and Mares, maiden claimers in for a tag, 50 mile and a 16th on the dirt.
I was in order. I just backed it up a little. Put it.
We'll try not to repeat.
Back.
No repeat.
I have a 3, 6, 7, and 4. Misanalyzed on top. Overanalyzed is an interesting first outsider. Now, this year only had 6 from the stats I looked up yesterday, only 6 first-time starters, but one of those won. But last year, 54 first-time starters, 14 winners, 5 seconds, 4 thirds. I realize this is not a first-time starter, but I look at those first-out stats as kind of touting win early type of talent. Now, this one had a couple of starts already. They weren't much, but A, they were against maiden specials. B, they were on off tracks down at Oaklawn. So hopefully we get a dry track today. We move in for a tag. I think this one with those 2 starts is going to offer some value, but I've said it a number of times. If you have a little win early breeding and they don't get it done in the first 2 or 3 starts and then change things up, go to turf, move down the claiming ladder, get a dry track, give them an extra look. So misanalyzed on top. Graceful Union in the second spot. 4 starts so far. 1 of them was for a tag. The claiming race was clearly the best start of the career. So getting back in for the tag, we'll look for the Cherie DeVoe runner to move forward this afternoon. Christian Torres now riding down at Churchill. We'll see if he can follow up on his really good Oaklawn meet. And winging a player in the third spot. Nice improvement, start 1 to start 2, in from Turfway. And again, Turfway horses did so well at Keeneland. We'll see what they can continue to do as they move over to Churchill Downs, but I'll trust this one to be competitive. And here in the opener, 3, 6, 7, and 4.
Second half of the early daily double, Phillies and Mares, starter allowance going 6.
1, 4, 7, and 5. I'll put Megan's Clara on top. Third start back. First couple of starts were pretty good. A win in the comebacker, and then a close-up second last time. But that third start back is always potent, or typically potent. Going out for Norm Cassie, Ricardo Santana on board. Lots of early speed. Certainly will flash that from the rail. Also with some early speed, La Vie, the number 4 horse. A California runner, last seen on the synthetic at Golden Gate, but has very good races on the dirt in Southern California. And so I would expect this one, as I say, who also has some early speed, to flash it, adding the blinkers today, going out for Jonathan Wong. And if you haven't been paying attention, this is a California-based guy, but who's now kind of shifting east and been making a little noise over the past few months. So worth maybe paying attention to a little bit. And then in the third slot, Super Renee, another one with some positional early speed. Showed it last time for a nice win. Claimed out of that by Mike Stidham, who with a limited sample is okay off the claim, but overall I think is going to fit. And a bonus that Tyler Gaffleone sticks on board because he rides very well down at Churchill in the second. 1, 4, 7, and 5.
When Jonathan Wong, who I'm familiar with in Southern California, first left, he was a bar graph trainer. Ooh.
And it's going to be interesting. He may continue to do that as he moves, east of the Mississippi.
Oh, and by the way, I didn't see it confirmed, but Mattress Mac, I think, bet Angel of Empire.
I think that, yeah.
But no one came out like usually it's completely clear, but it would seem to be more of we think. But I think it was Angel of Empire.
Did you see the interaction with Mahomes?
No.
Mattress Mac said, "You lost me a lot of money," and I'm wondering if Patrick even knew who he was, because he kind of blew by and shook his head. He was like, "Well, you got to be on me next time."
Okay, I'd be surprised. On to the third. We stick with starter allowance, going 7/8.
3, 5, 4, and 6. Slam dunk Sermon on top. Nice win. 2 back down at Oaklawn, and then tossed in an absolute clunker. 1 was on the page by the value, by the conditions, a little bit lower. That was the win. Then was a little bit higher last time with the loss. Now they split the difference. I just think if you look at this horse overall, that last race has the look of something of an aberration. All the prior races on the page are a good fit with this group. Second slot, Blue Kentucky. Luis Saez, who off to a very good start down at Churchill. No surprise. He hops on board this one, who was last seen at Keeneland. And again, I think if you look on the page, the conditions, the numbers this horse typically throws, he's a solid fit with this bunch, and Saez is a bonus. And Gaffleone, again, riding very well down at Churchill on board. American Pure, have that one in the third slot off a nice win at Keeneland, claimed out of that. We'll see what this one can do for the new barn. But I think, again, a better effort from American Pure puts that one right in the mix. And off the claim, I might have been a little bit leery, but that the horse attracted Tyler Gaffleone allowed me to toss him into the mix in the third at Churchill. 3, 5, 4, and 6.
On to the fourth race, Fillies and Mares, maiden special weights, running for $120,000. $40K a mile on the turf.
10, 1, 3, and 4. I'll put Vanished on top. A Pletcher Firster by Spitestown. The workouts are okay. Have been working down at Palm Beach Downs, but about the middle of April shows up at Churchill and put in some okay works. They aren't jumping off the page, but they're okay. And again, there's a little bit of win early breeding here. Pletcher Firster Vanished at 8-1 with Luis Saez on board. We'll hope the price holds up. Just Say So, Eddie Keneally runner that one of the runners in here, one of the many runners with some experience already. 4 tries and hasn't gotten it done. But overall, if you look at what this horse has done compared to the rest of this bunch, may be a good fit with this group this afternoon. And Strategized in the third spot, an offspring of Justify. Didn't quite live up to that in the debut. I'm going to hope this horse had a little trouble in that race. I hope the horse got an education and maybe benefits from that and moves forward and lives up to what's a little bit of an interesting breeding in here and improves nicely in the second career start. Fourth race, 10-1, 3, and 4.
And just for me, and for I'm going to keep 2 eyes on number 6, MCAT, who is a big price in here, making the debut against some major players. Tapping on top, but the intriguing part to me is Orientate underneath. We have a couple moments extra today. I said this before. Orientate won the sprint championship in 2002. But in about April of that year, Wayne had a horse named Snow Ridge, who was his top sprinter, ended up going to the sidelines. Orientate had won a mile race on the turf, and I thought, because people also don't remember, Orientate ran the Classic the year before, the 2001 Classic. I thought Orientate had been phenomenal in his mile turf race. I think it was the Sir Beaufort. And I was like, Wayne's got a good one. And he didn't pivot with Orientate to sprinting until after Snow Ridge had to be retired, and he filled in that slot. And now he's on the dam side, and I'm interested. On to the fifth.
Assume he must be some kind of shuttle, too, because that's a Brazilian.
Yes, so I think this is and definitely is going to be probably higher than 20-1 with those connections in that field. On to the fifth, Vanilla Claimers in for 40 on the dirt at a mile and 16.
2, 6, 7, and 5. Steve Asmussen owned and trained Mystic Knight, claimed last time down at Oaklawn, claimed out of a pretty good race. And again, owner-trainer Asmussen, I think, going to be cleverly spotted in here with Gaffleone on board. Second slot, we'll take a look at Huge Bigley. Also in from Oaklawn, claimed 2 back, moved into the barn of Robertina Diodoro. You would have to kind of feel like maybe there was a little bit of a setback in that the horse was claimed in January, doesn't come back until April, but it wasn't enough of a setback that they, hung the horse out there. The horse came back in a starter allowance. So we'll trust that one, which was an okay race early, faded a little bit late. We'll look for this one to now be maybe more interestingly spotted in this 40 claimer. And then in the third slot, Lord Captain, goes out for Maggie Moss and Tommy Amos off an allowance victory down at Delta Downs. That was the third in a string of 3 races, 3 wins. So horse coming in with some good form for a potent team in the fifth. 2, 6, 7, and 5.
And one more before our final break. 7 furlongs, Claimers in for 50,000, capital B.
8, 1, 4, and 5. I'll put Guntown on top. It is Steve Asmussen and Winchell, a son of Gun Runner, in the hunt more often than not, or in the hunt half of the time. Let's put it that way. 7 in the money finishes and 14 career starts. That includes nice win 2 back at the fairgrounds. Then went up to Oaklawn last time and ran 6th, but did it against what you would have to think was a saltier field than this B condition claimer. So at this level, we'll look for Guntown to maybe control things from the outside. Heartbreaker in the second spot, lightly raced Phil D'Amato runner coming in off a conditional claiming win at Keeneland on the move from Southern California and the seasonal debut. And arguably, I don't even know if it's arguably, that last race was the best race of the career. So lightly raced may just be an improved 5-year-old now. And then Charging Arrow in the third slot. Luis Saez hops on board this runner, dropping back in for a tag. And I think both of those are going to be beneficial. 6th at Churchill, 8-1, 4 and 5.
We'll take our final break. When we come back, second half of today's action from Churchill Downs.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
The Clubhouse Racebook is the Capital Region's new home for racing and sports. 25,000 square feet of Vegas-style action with live wagering on the best horse racing from around the world. 260 flat-screen televisions and state-of-the-art wagering terminals. So don't miss out. The fun is only minutes away at 711 Central Avenue, Albany, just off exit 5 of I-90. And don't forget, if you can't make it to the Clubhouse, you can always wager online 24/7 at CapitalOTB.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, up to race number 7 when they run the Breeders' Cup at Churchill Downs. This is the filly and mare distance, 11 furlongs, 3 turns on the turf, entry-level allowance.
9-2-1-8, I'll put Merrow on top. Mike Maker, Tyler Gaffleone, seasonal debut was a decent little third over at Keeneland, and I would have to think that is a nice fitness builder to move forward from. So I'll put that one on top. Tepid pick on top, though. I think this race is kind of wide open. Second spot, F5, going out for Brian Lynch. 10-1 on the morning line, but certainly this horse improved greatly. Seasonal debut, first start on turf over at Keeneland. Finished in front of my top pick, and it being only the third start, I was just a little scared of, do we get a little bit of a bounce being lightly raced in the comeback, and now stretches out to the mile and 3/8. But I do think this horse has some talent at the 10-1. If you get the right price, I think the horse is very playable. Shug has a trending in here, third start of the season. Nice improvement, start 1 to start 2. That bodes well that maybe we're primed to move forward again. And if so, trending very, very dangerous in here. 7th at Churchill, 9, 2, 1, and 8.
By the way, good call on General Jim.
Yeah, he was one of my better thoughts on the day.
Him. I had him in the try box, but you had him on top. Kudos. On to the 8th race.
And it's going to be interesting to see how they go with him now. Do they stick short? Do they stretch?
I don't know what to do either. I have an opinion what they should do, but
Well,
he's in very good hands. I'm not stretching out.
Okay, all right. I just think, we're talking about
it's
a siren call of these races.
You're 100% right. Claimer 75, 2L, mile on the dirt.
6-5, 3-1. Costa Terra on top for Steve Asmussen and Winchell. Comes off a couple of starts down at Oaklawn against Allowance Company. So again, third start back, moves in for a tag. There's some things to point to this one as being very playable. Tepu, I'm guessing at that. Brendan Walsh runner comes out of a seasonal.
Was another hockey player?
Is it? I don't know. I have no idea. that would escape my
I know.
pronunciation. Even though I'm an RPI alum
hockey
for
didn't
a
stick.
couple of years. Yeah,
hockey didn't stick.
I eventually
basketball stuff.
Graduated from Syracuse and was much more comfortable rooting for the basketball. But seasonal debut was not good, but it was against Allowance Company. There are back races that I hope we get to. I don't think that's out of the question. Then Crump in the third slot. Another one dropping in for a tag that might find that move beneficial. Gaffleone on board for Brendan Walsh in the 8th. 6-5, 3-1.
For the record, RPI has more national championships in hockey than Syracuse has in basketball. Just for the record.
How many times have they won the national championship in hockey? Because I know they won some years after I graduated. But
tell you a time lapse. The lapse between the two that they have is less than the gap between their last one and now.
Yeah.
On to the 9th. Optional claimers 82X, Phillies and Mares, 6 on the dirt.
2-1, 6-10. Top Gun Girl comes into this off a seasonal debut where the horse showed some speed before fading. I think the Wesley Ward runner is going to, A, benefit from that, but B, that bullet workout on May 7th, I think tilts their hand. Less than a week ago, they fired in the morning, and I think that kind of says where their, the intent will be this afternoon. Top Gun Girl on top for me. Well spent, going out for Marshall Graham, 10-strike racing. Also coming in with some good workouts. Has not started yet this season, but was down at Oaklawn. Didn't get a start down there, but comes in off 2 really nice workouts down at Oaklawn that could be tilting, in their direction of we want to be live in the seasonal debut. Portilla in the third slot, hasn't been seen since mid-January down at Oaklawn, but the Al Stall runner, I think fits okay with this particular group. Moofy, or if I'm pronouncing that correctly, seasonal debut for Jonathan Thomas and Augustin at 12-1. Don't ignore the 10. I think that horse is interesting as well. Fun race in the 9th. I have a 2-1, 6-10.
Marshall Graham has some very interesting, which I am on board with, ideas of odds and very higher level mathematics
I would think that would be right in your wheelhouse. Yes. And I would tell people to follow his Twitter feed because it's always very interesting.
It is not entry-level thinking, and it's not too deep. You might take a moment to just, maybe reread it or something, get a scratch paper on it. But I think he's worth a follow to your bankroll.
And for folks who aren't familiar, Marshall Graham, he's a college professor. Phil Graham, the senator, it's just senator, right? His son, college professor, who has become, he's a very good contest player. Now he's an owner, a breeder, but a college professor. At least one of the courses he teaches, the kids come in and read the racing for him all day long.
I don't like to butt in because it's your whole thing, but I would like to sit in if you have. I'm sure you'll have him on because he's a very gregarious. He
now spends the whole summer up in Saratoga.
So, very interesting. Very. Just follow him on Twitter. You'll be rewarded. The feature race today, 5.5 on the turf.
7-2, 1 and 3. Private Creed on top. Comes out of a stake over at Keeneland that, it was an okay 5th place finish, but the race 3 back down at Sam Houston attracts my attention. We'll see if we can get closer to that. I don't think that's a done deal, but I don't think this is a particularly potent field of turf, stakes quality turf sprinters. So I'll tilt a little bit towards the Asmussen runner. Gaslight Dancer, Mike Maker, Tyler Gaffleone. The race that Private Creed comes out of, Gaslight Dancer, won. Now, Private Creed did have a little bit of trouble in there, so I'm factoring that in as well. Gilcrease at 15-1. I think the Al Stall runner is interesting, getting back to the turf off an improved couple of efforts as a 3-year-old on the dirt. This horse could be intriguing today, getting back to the turf in the 3rd start of the season. 7-2, 1 and 3.
Wrapping it up around 5:58. 3-year-olds it up. Maiden Claimers going 6.
10-9, 1 and 8. Lundberg on top. I'm attracted by the fact that they came back this season for the waiver a couple of times down at Oaklawn, including a nice win last time to break the maiden. Not a lot in the 2nd spot. Comes in off a couple of nice efforts down at the fairgrounds for the Catman. And West Point has, speaking of the devil, in the 3rd spot for Asmussen. Nice try last time. Good second there, and I would think bodes well off of that. I will note Lundberg, as I said, won last time, was disqualified, so obviously that's why we get back in the maiden today. But for me, in the 11th at Churchill, 10-9, 1 and 8.
Lundberg? I wonder if that's Office Space, the movie. That was the boss's name.
Was it? I haven't seen that in a while. It's It's definitely worth a watch, though.
All right, that wraps up our in-between show, the week in between the first 2 legs of the Triple Crown. I do think that I don't think the argument is anymore. I think the only argument left is because that's always the way we've done it. Is the only argument left.
That's a bad argument.
It's a bad argument.
If you look at the Triple Crown, this isn't the way it was always done.
For most people's lifetime, but it's a bad argument. I think it would be a much better race if two fills and Forte was in it. And I think that's the argument. That's the, hammer down. Mike McAdam and Dave Grenning will be joining Seth and Racing Across America, which is up next. I know it's a lovely Saturday out there, but the racing continues. Just those two cards in and of itself, outstanding.
Oh, Monmouth opens today.
I saw Chris Griffin put up a tweet of his Monmouth Park jersey things to do. And by the way, Beach Day was one of the things for his summer forte, what he should be doing. Because it sounds like this is his initial foray.
I think he's announced there before, but Miramati was the regular.
Right,
but.
so he's got a Jersey Shore.
Good for him.
Good for him. He stays, I go. Have a great Saturday.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.